My name is Fraser Morrison. I'm doing the introduction here, and then we've got Bill and Steve that are going to be presenting and running through this topic with everybody. Yeah. So we're talking about finance systems, replatforming. Bill is the co-founder and CEO of Salamander. He's CEO of SGX listed company Datacraft for 6 years, SEVP Global Transformation Platform Services, board member. His experience is staggering over the years. And Steve Bristow is senior associate, 20 plus years experience of finance transformation in financial services, HSBC, Royal Bank of Scotland, MSIG, Aon, 7 years in APAC fintech teams, Greenhill Capital, so on and so forth. So the style of the session today is an interactive session where please ask questions. They'll be talking for about 25 minutes and we'll have a Q&A at the end. But Bill is going to sort of have a conversation with Stephen as he goes through this, and they're going to have this dialogue and conversation and make it a little bit more interactive, but still stay on track and stay technical. So Steve, over to you. Thank you.
Yep. Welcome, everybody. And if there's any questions, just feel to add them into chat, and hopefully Fraser or Bill will keep you in check and raise, there's a pertinent question there. Okay, welcome, everybody. So we have 6 questions, which we think are pertinent to this arena. So the first one is, for growing startups, how should leadership teams think about finance systems replatforming in practical day-to-day terms? Now, it really comes down to main 2 real areas: is software selection and implementation support partners. So for most startups, they won't necessarily be aware of all the options available to them and how the best way to go about evaluating the software and choosing a support partner to help implement it, or the best value package to get to the endpoint you need to get to. In terms of strain on staff, historically, if you're doing this kind of project, it's a lot of resource. And the people with the knowledge are some of the in-house people in your team already, but they're already snowed under with BAU. But also there's experienced people like myself and other people in that arena who have done this for many years, who can help guide you through that process. So it's a real situation where you have a problem to solve, but some of the people experience you have in-house may be capable of some of it, but also you need outside of house experience to bring practical solutions and the right solution for you to make sure your solution is future-proof. One of the things we commonly see is people not really thinking through exactly what it is they can do with the investment they're going to make. So it's a big investment in replatforming, and sometimes it's done as a matter of urgency because there's a business process requirement to change systems rapidly, and therefore you don't get the best return investment out of that process without enough thoughts and enough experience coming into that decision making to help you come up with the right package for you as you go through that journey. From a practical point of view, the strain in staff and processes can be summed up quite well from experiences I've had in some of the companies I had. And we'll go on to that, I think, in the next slide, Bill.
Okay.
So as a business scales, what are the early signs that the existing finance setup is starting to fall behind operational needs? There's a couple of areas which are pretty obvious. So you have processing bottlenecks where you've probably started off from a situation where you have had someone manually keying in the first 1 or 2 invoices to a point where actually they're now maybe importing it via spreadsheet. And now you get to a point where actually it's taking probably half a working day to import transactions into the system. There's a processing bottleneck there, but also as your business grows, you'll then get to the point actually the mum and pop shop system I bought, which has cost me $50 a month, is great at the starting point, but now it doesn't cover me if I want to do a different country or want to do cross-border payments, or I need to do consolidation or intercompany payments. So there's features that those initial Xero, QuickBooks kind of scenarios will not allow you to do. But then you come into system operational issues where actually once you get to that point where I've got past the hurdle of now got maybe a bot or something loading in my Excel file every day of my transactions, but now the system itself can't actually handle the volume of transactions and falls over. So to give you a practical example of this, for those of you who may or may not remember Hula was the first buy now, pay later company in Asia. And I got brought into Hula 5 years ago when they were basically on Xero and going through this exact problem where Xero, to be optimal, is designed to work around 5,000 transactions a month. When I came in the door to Hula, we were processing 100,000 transactions a month. And within 3 months, we were processing 200,000 a month. At that point, we weren't able to produce AR aging or AP aging reports out of the system. It would fall over. We even went to the CEO APAC of Xero, and even his back-end team couldn't get it out of their system for us. So we actually had to go backwards and actually start producing our own AR AP aging reports based off our source system transactions. So there's processing bottlenecks in terms of BAU issue of getting transactions in the system. And then there's a system itself actually falling over and not being able to deliver what you need to do. Now, that transition, depending on the speed of your scale up, can happen very quickly. And without planning, that's a big concern. It can effectively shut down your operations. And we see those examples.
Steve, sorry, quick question, if I may. We get approached as a team regularly by companies saying, look, I've got a basic financial system of some sort, but now I'm spending more and more time trying to figure out how to use the tool, do proper entry, do my proper reporting, rather than running my flippant business. So is that the point where people then really start to look to re-platform to something, or is it something that they just struggle with?
I think re-platform is not necessarily around understanding the accounting side of it. It's more the volume and where your scale up is going from a product perspective, a country perspective, and a transaction volume perspective. From a basic accounting functionality in terms of actually being able to deliver reports and do basic accounting, the package won't really matter. It really comes down to the complexity of your business. So you'll still be able to run P&Ls if the system can handle the volume transactions. The complexity comes more into if I'm then having to do cross-border payments or worried about countries with restricted data where I can't basically hold personal data, etc. That's when obviously different parts come into it, where you actually then maybe talking about compliance and data protection. So there's another wing to that as you grow as your company outside of the accounting arena, which is part of the journey, which we'll come on to a little bit in terms of why management is so important in terms of this process.
Thank you.
Any questions so far popped up?
Not at the moment.
And I'm going to say, hello, Justine. I saw you pop up and you're probably thinking, what's this strange man I know from somewhere else doing on her screen? So I might see you later on. So I won't say that Justine knows someone who I maybe drink with occasionally. So hello, Justine. Okay, slide 3. From your experience, why do changes to finance systems often require more leadership time and attention than initially expected? I think this is a classic thing I've seen before as well. It's you're under pressure suddenly to scale a business. The business is scaling successfully, which is good, obviously, but you're now in a situation where I need to move to a bigger platform. But what's really key here is understanding kind of a forecast of what's on your agenda for the next 2 years, providing your scale up is going to plan. What products do I need? What countries am I going to be in? What is your anticipated transaction volume? Because that will really drive exactly the right solution, which is going to be a future-proof solution to mean you won't need to scale up again until you get to the next level, which we're really talking kind of post-IPO, where you're maybe then in the spheres of an SAP or full Oracle MNC type product. So it's very key here at this stage to get the design right, and leadership is very important in that process to spend time. And what I've seen from my past is that the CFO will be driving this, and depending on how close they are with what's really going on with the CEO, you may get a good outcome, you may not. What's also important to understand is if you're close to a potential exit point here, is that most exit points will require 3 years of historic audited data in your finance system. So at this point is then another question around, do I need to import historic data? So do I actually need to import my 2025 years data, 2024 years data? At Shopback 2 years ago, we changed our financial reporting year from being a Singapore January to December reporting year to an April to March reporting year. So there's a question around, by just doing the systems upgrade, is there an opportunity there to help shape again? The roadmap again is very key to helping you drive that process. The next situation, which is the classic situation, is, well, how do I put this live? I've got one system that's working, it's failing, I need to build one. So you go through the design, the UAT, the training, and then becomes actually, right, I'm ready to go. But what does that actually mean? Does that mean you want to do a parallel run? Are you set up in a way that you can literally switch one off and switch new one on? Do you do that as part of a new financial year? So it's kind of the big bang approach or parallel run. Now, again, as part of that, depending on the size of your business and what the complexities are, it could be you want to do a phased rollout where you do one country first, or just do one part of a process first, and maybe do AR first and then do AP. So it's very much bespoke and niche down to your particular setup of where you are, your products, your roadmap, etc. So leadership is key to give you this input to get the design right, to make sure what you're building is therefore set up for you all the way through to your next major milestone as a company. You're on mute, Bill.
Sorry, I've got a neighbor that's suddenly making a lot of noise here. Is it a given that there's going to be operational disruption as people go through this transition?
Yes, for sure. And again, it comes down to really the quality of the staff you've got in terms of are your finance people experienced from actually being through this process before, or are they just kind of finance BAU people who get better process and do what they follow, do they're told and follow an SOP approach? So it really comes down to the experience you have in-house to help you shape that, but also the experience of your leadership team to say, well, I may have a CFO, but this is their first real CFO job and they're in a startup. They may have worked in big companies as a finance director, but never been CFO. So do they have enough knowledge to even think about these questions prior to actually deciding we need to move from Xero to Workday or NetSuite? Do they have the knowledge to actually get these questions answered to make sure that actually what is delivered is fit for purpose and not going to have to be redone again in a year's time? Okay, question 4. What level of leadership ownership is needed to ensure finance systems changes are treated as a core business priority rather than internal back office projects? And I think going back to the last point, it's key. You can do it without this input, but it won't be successful and you will be revisiting it sooner than you thought you will be. So I think the main thing from leadership is sponsorship to tell staff that they are empowered to go and make this project happen, but it's a key project to the success of a business. And then reinforcing that message as we go through a project at certain points, because there will be pain points. There will be points where staff are under pressure from BAU, staff are under pressure from new rollouts, new countries, new products. So it's a realization from leadership that this isn't straightforward, especially if you're in a scale-up phase, because you can plan ahead, but with any startup, there's always road bumps, there's new things coming in, there's always curveballs. So the main thing is to understand that planning will help this, but the roadmap will really help that, and the reinforcement and sponsorship from senior leadership and even board. So if you have senior people in your board who have been through this before, get these guys involved, talk to the teams and say, look, it's going to be uncomfortable, the areas, but there is light at the end of the tunnel, because ultimately we should be seeing efficiency gains in our processing as part of that, which will free up people to do more value add processes, as all finance people want to do, rather than just process. They want to add input back into leadership in terms of direction where the financials going. So during periods of rapid growth expansion, which parts of business tend to feel pressure first when finance systems are upgraded? So naturally finance, depending on what the scale of the changes we're doing, if you're looking to do as part of this rollout, maybe integrate into banks, so you can actually integrate your bank payments directly from your system, that will come into it. The other side of it, again, depending on what your business is, if it's a B2B or B2C, depending on how many vendors or customers you're dealing with, the onboarding process, the vendors may change. So your business development teams may be involved. If you use Salesforce or some of the CRM, there may be an interaction to API that CRM into your new system, or even potentially change your CRM as part of this process. The main thing to focus on here is ultimately there will be efficiency gain expectations out of the end of these projects, and there should be, rightly, for return on investment. And this is the whole point, is it's not just freeing up an operational issue, it's actually making your business more efficient. So yeah, so it's 100% finance, but again, it comes down to the quality of your team and the bandwidth you have in your team, which for most startups is zero bandwidth. So all I can really say is every part of the business will be affected, but some more than others.
Steve, if you talk to your C-suite of companies that's gone through this, if they look back over these projects, what do they wish they'd done differently? Is there any learning from these things?
I think it's understanding the things I've seen most on people not taking the time to take the opportunity to redesign or reevaluate how they set up their business, not set up their business, but how their financials are set up. You'll start up very much with, okay, I'm in one country, we've run products. I don't need to worry about cost centers or departments. So I don't have an HR department. I don't have a compliance department. I have 10 people, and I might have finance and sales, but I don't need to break down my numbers like that way. But in the future, you might want to allocate your costs by cost centers. So it's really, rather than if you are, and it's coming back to a phased approach, depending on what your immediate need is right now. Is it my system's falling over? I need to get onto a more stable platform. Okay, let's lift and shift where you are, but let's lift and shift in a way that means we're not shooting ourselves in the foot, and it will allow us to develop what you lifted and shifted to be future-proof in another phase. So it's really trying to kind of pull back. So if there's an immediate issue needs fixing now, which is operational, let's fix that as phase one. But let's make sure we keep phase two in play, which is make sure we then have the ability to make sure it's set up and future-proof, so we don't have to potentially do another whole systems replatforming in 1 or 2 years' time, Bill.
Right. So I've got a follow-on question, if I may, Your Honor. People that I've seen over the years have got world-class systems that they buy, and then they spend the next many months, quarters, years rewriting the systems to fit their business processes rather than changing their business processes to fit the systems. Opinions on that?
Yeah, exactly what I've seen where I am. So it was at one point during my journey. So just so everyone know, I've been working at Shopback Hula the last 5 years. Tomorrow is my last day. But when Shopback bought Hula were in the process. I was in the process of upgrading Xero to NetSuite for Hula because the transaction volume was so high. Shopback then bought Hula, and at that time, Shopback were about to roll out NetSuite, and the plan was we would actually skip Hula NetSuite and go from Xero Hula to Shopback NetSuite. But what happened was Shopback bought the Hula business and then immediately started invested marketing spend into the buy now, pay later product, and their volumes went up even higher. So from being 200,000 a month when I was already struggling, we suddenly shot up to 300,000 a month. So we then were like, actually, well, no, Steve, you need to get onto NetSuite really quickly, but not Shopback NetSuite. So I had to basically move from Xero to Hula NetSuite. So at one point for 6 months, we were running 3 systems. We had Xero Hula, NetSuite Hula, Shopback NetSuite. And over the course of a year, I had to move all those onto one Shopback NetSuite. But again, the design I found was that Shopback had lifted and shifted their processes from their old system onto NetSuite. They spent a lot of money with NetSuite consultants replumbing NetSuite out of the box to match their existing business process. And what should have happened was they should have changed their business process to actually come more in line with kind of standard practice. And again, you see it. And again, in our particular example there, it's because the company didn't have an experienced CFO.
Yeah.
So it's really, and again, leadership at the C-suite level had no real knowledge in this area, to be honest.
Yeah, and from my own experience, I've seen these tools where there's thousands of man years or person years gone into developing these tools to get best practice, and yet some small companies think they've got better knowledge on how it should be done. And this sometimes is a big debate up front, never mind during the process of implementation. But once it's implemented, how do these guys know whether it's successful or not based on your experience? Does success ever happen on a day, or is it something that's never quite there and it goes on and on and on?
Yeah, there should always be an immediate impact from changing the platform, be it from the bottlenecks we talked about or the efficiency gains, or now as part of phase one, you'll now have bank connectivity and your invoices are being paid out directly through bank via an API feed rather than through a batch upload process. So there should be immediate wins. But again, coming back to kind of roadmap and planning and design and phases, we can look ahead and say, like, day one, this is what we want to do. But certainly within, say, a 90-day window, post-go-live window, you'd want to be in a situation where you are all kind of tail-end bugs are fixed. You should be able to actually scorecard that the efficiency gains you said as part of return investment are now being measured and achievable. Yeah, again, to me, it's all about planning and getting the right time and the right people in the room in that planning stage to make sure you're getting the right inputs, getting the right sponsorship.
And expecting realistic goals, I would imagine too, right?
Yeah, and I think being honest about this whole customization piece to say, well, why do you want to customize it to your current practice? Have a rethink about your current practice, because it's going to shoot yourself in the foot further down the line.
Thanks, Mike.
Unless there's a particular unique business case around your business that demands it. So, for instance, like on the BNPL product, when we started with NetSuite 5 years ago, they couldn't cater for it properly. But now, as part of that process, they've now actually have a BNPL type module on there to allow installments, etc. So, look, a good thing is with most of these middle-size ERPs, they do adapt quite quickly, and customization is available, but at a cost. So, you just we want to make sure is that the best bang for my buck, customizing something.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, startups are preparing for the next stage of growth while remaining disciplined on cost and disruption. What is a sensible way to transition from their current finance setup to something more scalable? So I think I'll try to put in capital letters to be bold, but roadmaps, it's key. The more information you get in up front, the better your output will be and the safer your output will be for the future. I think it's understanding the options available, because actually we haven't mentioned AI yet, and I don't want to mention AI because I'm probably the AI dinosaur in the room, is that there are more and more things coming around in that space which can help add on to existing platforms. So it could be that actually you don't need a full replatform. It could be something we can do with what you've got. There's also situations around, do I need to store every transaction at granular level on my new refinancing platform? Or do I need some kind of middleware where I can host the transactions and then consolidate into my system to help reduce license costs as well? So there's many options available. I think the main thing really is to understand what are the ballpark costs of licensing, implementation, staffing, and again, just speaking to the right people, talk to people with experience, go and talk to as many of the software providers as you can. The support partner network is very interesting. So I'm not sure how many of you know, but if you talk to people like NetSuite and Workday, they have their own in-house implementation teams. So there are third-party official partners available who will be potentially cheaper and in some ways very good in their niche areas, but maybe higher risk because they don't necessarily have cover if someone's off sick, etc. So again, it's just understanding the options available. I've personally worked with one very bad third-party partner and one very good third-party partner. So again, just having a knowledge and understanding of what options are around at the cost level you are, in terms of there's always some way to help make it work at the budget level you're at if you speak to the right people.